There are 3 phone calls sitting in front of every Australian pensioner right now, and almost nobody makes them. Not because they're hard, not because you need a special card or a lawyer on retainer, simply because there is no one at Services Australia whose job it is to ring you up and say, by the way, you're owed more than you're getting. Here's a number to sit with for a second. Some retirees who make these 3 calls unlock more than $500 extra every fortnight. Run that across a 20-year retirement and you're staring down 6 figures, money that was never a bonus, never a gift from the government, it was already yours. It's just been sitting in a file untouched, waiting for someone to ask the right question. And here's the one that really gets me. The 3rd call on this list is the one Centrelink has the least reason to ever bring up themselves, because it means admitting your pension has been calculated on numbers that are months, sometimes years out of date. Fix it, and they don't just lift your payment going forward, in some cases they backdate it. So, before you assume your pension is right just because the deposit lands on the same day every fortnight like clockwork, stick with me. We're going through exactly what to say, who to say it to, and the order that gets you the best result. Before we get into it, hit subscribe now. Centrelink thresholds, taper rates and concession rules get quietly adjusted every single year, usually in March and September. Miss an update and you could be leaving real money on the table without ever knowing it. I break these changes down as soon as they land, so you're never the last to find out.
Quick word on who I am. I work alongside retirees and their families untangling exactly this kind of thing. Payment reviews, concession entitlements, the paperwork nobody explains properly the first time around. I'm not a Centrelink employee, and nothing here replaces personalised financial or legal advice for your situation. Think of this as the conversation I'd have with you over a cup of tea before you pick up the phone yourself. Let me paint you a picture, because a story sticks better than a spreadsheet. Picture a retired tradesman, we'll call him Ray, who clocked off for the last time just over a year ago. His age pension started landing every second Thursday, and because the amount never changed, he never questioned it. Why would he? Except it was wrong in 3 separate ways all at once. First, when Centrelink assessed his account-based pension, they used the balance from the day he applied. 18 months later, that balance had dropped considerably, partly from market movement, partly from drawing down living expenses, but nobody re-ran the numbers, because nobody reruns them unless you ask. Second, Ray never applied for his pensioner concession card add-ons through his state energy provider, so he was paying full price on electricity while eligible for a rebate worth hundreds a year. Third, and this is the one that really stung, Ray's wife had passed away 2 years earlier, and nobody at Centrelink had ever reviewed whether Ray was entitled to a higher single-rate reassessment plus a bereavement-related adjustment he'd never claimed. 3 leaks, 1 pension. Not a single letter arrived warning him about any of it. This isn't rare. If anything, it's closer to the default setting for how these systems run. Nobody's out to get you. The system just isn't built to chase you down with good news. So let's fix that, 1 call at a time.
Call 1. The Income and Assets Recheck. This call goes straight to Services Australia, and the number is on the back of any Centrelink correspondence you've received or on your online account through MyGov. Here's what almost no one is told. Your age pension isn't a fixed number handed to you once and left alone. It's recalculated based on the income and assets test, and Centrelink only updates those figures when you tell them something's changed. Superannuation balances drop, term deposits mature and get spent down, shares lose value. None of that gets picked up automatically. If your assessed assets are higher on paper than what you actually hold today, your pension is quietly lower than it should be, and it stays that way until somebody flags it. Here's exactly what to say once you're through to a real person. I'd like to request a review of my income and assets assessment. I believe the figures on file may no longer reflect my current situation, and I'd like to update them. Then let them work through it. Have your most recent bank statements, super fund balance, and any account-based pension statements ready before you dial. They'll ask for evidence, and having it on hand turns a "we'll look into it" into an actual outcome on the call. One group this hits hardest: widows and widowers. If your partner has passed away, the survivor's rate and any bereavement payment adjustments are notoriously easy to miss. Ask directly, "My spouse has passed away. Can you confirm I'm receiving the correct single rate and whether I'm eligible for a bereavement payment I haven't yet received?" I've seen this single question shift a fortnightly payment by well over $100. It will not happen unless you're the one who asks.
Call 2, the concession card most people underuse. This one doesn't go to Centrelink's pension line at all, which is exactly why it slips past so many people. This is about making sure your pensioner concession card, or your Commonwealth Seniors Health Card if your pension doesn't cover you, is actually being put to work. Here's the bit that surprises people. These cards aren't just for cheaper prescriptions, though that matters. Under the PBS safety net, concession card holders can pay as little as around $7.70 per script once they're on the concessional list, compared to well over $30 at the general rate. Across a handful of regular medications, that adds up fast over a year. But the card also opens doors most retirees never walk through. Reduced rates on council rates, discounted or free public transport depending on your state, rebates on electricity and gas accounts, and reduced registration on your car in several states. None of these apply themselves. Every single one requires you to contact the relevant provider and say the card exists. On this call, ask 2 direct questions. Can you confirm every concession and rebate I'm eligible for with this card? And how do I apply for each one? And don't assume you're already receiving everything just because you've held the card for years. Rebate schemes get renamed, re-thresholded, and reapplied for almost every year. And if you haven't re-registered recently, some providers quietly let the discount lapse. If your income sits close to the age pension cutoff and you've been told you don't qualify for the full pension, ask specifically about the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. It has a separate, more generous income test, and plenty of self-funded retirees who assume they get nothing from the government actually qualify for this card and the savings that come with it.
Quick word about the guide. Before we get into call 3, the big one, a quick mention for anyone who wants all of this laid out in one place rather than chasing it down call by call. I've put everything we're covering today, plus a fair bit more, into something called the 2026 Australian Seniors Benefits Survival Guide. It's a plain English breakdown of every major entitlement, concession and rebate available to Australian retirees this year. The current income and assets thresholds, which concession cards unlock which savings, exactly what to say when you call Centrelink, and a checklist so nothing slips through the cracks. Think of it as the cheat sheet I wish every one of my clients had before they picked up the phone. There's a link in the description if you want it. It won't replace speaking with Centrelink directly about your own situation, but it'll save you a lot of guesswork before you dial. Right, back to the call that trips up the most people. Call 3, the reassessment they will never ring you about. This is the one I flagged right at the start. It goes back to Centrelink, and it's the call with the biggest single payout for the people it applies to, because it deals with a gap almost nobody realises exists. Here's the mechanism. When you first applied for the age pension, Centrelink locked in a snapshot. Your income, your assets, your deeming rates on savings and investments, all frozen at that moment in time. That snapshot is what your fortnightly payment has been built on ever since, unless you've actively told them things have changed. Think about who this hits hardest. Someone who retired with a healthy super balance, drew it down over 18 months to fund renovations or help the grandkids and never reported the drop. Or someone whose part-time work finally stopped, but the employment income line on their file still says otherwise. Or someone earning deemed interest on savings that have shrunk, while Centrelink is still deeming income on the original larger figure.
In every one of these cases, the pension being paid is lower than what the person is genuinely entitled to, and the gap compounds every single fortnight it goes unreported. The tool for fixing this isn't automatic. It's a straightforward reassessment request, but you have to be the one to trigger it. Here's the language to use. My financial circumstances have changed since my last assessment. My assets and income have gone down. I'd like to request a reassessment and confirm whether this can be backdated. That word backdated is doing a lot of work in that sentence. If your circumstances changed 6 months ago and you're only reporting it now, ask specifically whether the increased payment can be applied retroactively to when the change actually happened. Rules around backdating vary depending on why the update wasn't made sooner, so push for a clear answer rather than accepting a vague, "we'll fix it" going forward.
3 mistakes that get these calls knocked back. Before we wrap up, let's cover where people trip themselves up, because a little preparation is often the difference between a yes and a come back with more paperwork. Mistake 1, ringing the wrong line. Calls 1 and 3 go through Centrelink's Age Pension team. Concession and rebate questions in call 2 often need a follow-up call to your state's utility provider, transport authority, or council directly. Sort out who you're actually talking to before you dial. Mistake 2, turning up with nothing in hand. If you're reporting a lower asset value or a change in income, the person on the other end needs evidence, not just your word for it. Bank statements, super balances, a Centrelink schedule statement. Have them within arm's reach before you call. Mistake 3, and it's the sneaky one, waiting. Every fortnight you put this off is a fortnight you're either underpaid or paying full price for things you didn't need to. This isn't the kind of task that gets easier by leaving it for later. Bringing it all together, let's recap the 3 calls in the order that gets results. Call 1 goes to Centrelink. Request a full review of your income and assets assessment, and if you've lost a partner, specifically confirm your survivor rate and any bereavement entitlement. Call 2 covers your pensioner concession card or Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. Confirm every rebate and concession attached to it, and check whether you actually qualify for a card you assumed was out of reach. Call 3 goes back to Centrelink. Report any change in your income or assets since your last assessment and ask directly whether the correction can be backdated. For someone who slipped through the cracks on all 3, the combined uplift can run past $500 a fortnight. Stretch that across 20 years of retirement, and you're talking about 6 figures that stays with you and your family instead of quietly disappearing into a system that was never built to chase you down with good news. Think back to Ray from earlier. Nothing about his situation was unusual. He wasn't owed anything you aren't also potentially owed. The only thing that changed for him was the day he stopped assuming his payment was correct and started asking questions. Let me be straight with you, the way I'd want someone to be straight with me. Not everyone will qualify for all 3 of these. Your exact entitlement depends on your personal income, your assets, your state, and your specific record with Centrelink. Treat everything in this video as general information, not personalized financial or legal advice. And because thresholds and rules shift every year, always confirm your own numbers directly with Services Australia or a professional you trust before acting on any of it. But here's what won't change. None of these 3 calls will ever be made for you. Not by Centrelink, not by your bank, not by anyone. The review, the concession check, the reassessment, each one only happens the day you decide to pick up the phone. One last thing before you go. If a representative tells you a program doesn't apply to you or that there's nothing to review, that's not always the final word. Thank them. Hang up and try again. Hold times are long, and not every staff member knows every scheme back to front. Ask for a supervisor if you need to. The retirees who actually recovered this money aren't the lucky ones. They're the ones who didn't stop after the first no. If this shifted how you look at your own pension statement, do me a favor, share it with someone you love who's over 60 or heading into retirement. Most people will go through their entire retirement never learning these 3 calls exist. This could be the most valuable 20 minutes they spend all year. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.